Good morning, welcome, hello. It is Saturday the 15th of January. I'm at Marsden Weir, ready for the start of the park run. It's 8 o'clock in the morning and we're ready to go. Now, last week our park run was cancelled because the track was underwater, and as we go through the run today you'll see there are places where there's still gravel and debris on the track. So I started my week this week by taking a run on a course on the top side of the river where there are paths as well, with the idea that it was possible to see whether it was possible to find a course on the top side of the river that therefore would be weatherproof and you could run all year round. And I mapped that out and ran it, and I posted that to Facebook and to my YouTube channel earlier in the week. So it is possible to find a 5-kilometre course there. The area that I chose starts at the dog park behind the tillage, which is off Mary's Mount Road. Now the local people know what I'm talking about. If you're not a local, then I guess when you look at the maps and things at the end of that video, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a car park there and there are water stations, but the downside of it is there are no toilets there. Now I'm told that toilets are not an essential requirement for park run, but they are a convenience. So I've mentioned this lack of toilets in that area before because there's a playground there, the inclusive space playground it's called, with the idea of children being brought out to be able to play there, but there are no toilets. So hopefully it's something the council has on their agenda and will deal with in the not too distant future. So getting back to today's run, as we've passed under the Crookwell Road Bridge already, and then around the bend and up the hill where the waterfowl, the geese and the ducks live, and so I'm heading off now towards the Hawthorne Street Bridge in a fairly flat section. I should say at this point I'm recording this audio later using the microphone that I was given as a Christmas present, and I'm doing that because although I could have used the camera that's built into the the microphone that's built into the camera, I thought that if I started talking to myself at the beginning of the race, other people would be put off and they'd think I was talking to them and so on, and that would put them off their running. Normally when I'm running and I'm using the microphone in the camera, there's nobody else around, so if somebody goes past me and sees me talking to myself, then if they don't realise I'm filming, I suppose they just assume it's some crazy old man babbling away to himself. But so I didn't want to put anybody off by talking the first little section till the field sorted itself out a bit, and then as I got into the run I thought, well okay, I'll just record something later. So now I've got to try and remember the sorts of things I was thinking about and what it is that I might want to talk to you about or mention. So as I said, we're about to cross the Hawthorne Street Bridge. It's a bridge over a stormwater gully rather than an actual part of the watercourse. The river that we're run beside here is of course the Wallandilly River, and the Hawthorne Street Bridge goes over a gully which is really I think for stormwater. Now you'll notice in the first section that I've probably passed some people, and then some of those people are now passing me, and others that I have passed will undoubtedly pass me later on in the event. It's the nature of park running. I'm one of those people who hasn't got a good strategy for running, unfortunately. I tend to go out faster than I should do and then not have anything left at the end, whereas the smart people know that the race is won in the last 100 metres or the best times are recorded in the last section rather than in the first section. So going down from the Hawthorne Street Bridge, there's a sort of dip down and a bend around before it rises again, and we're just on the downside of that dip now, and I'm making my way up the slope. Now it's not very steep, but it is an undulating course that we use, and I have filmed this course once before, but that was just when I was running it by myself, and now obviously I'm filming it as a Saturday event that other people are running. And because I'm doing the audio later, I can tell you that there were 44 runners this morning, so some of those, as you undoubtedly see, are in front of me, and there are some obviously behind me. So on the way up the rise on the other side of that dip down from the Hawthorne Street Bridge up towards an area that's known as the Ken Brown Reserve. Now Ken Brown was a bloke who worked for the Goulburn City Council as it was before it became Goulburn Marwarry Council, and he worked for something like 44 years. I'm not sure exactly what capacity he started in, but when he retired, he was what was called the town clerk. I think the official title for that position now is either chief executive or general manager or something like that. But so he had a long career with the council, and you can just see a spot of gravel there that's a result of the rain. This is gravel that's washed down onto the path rather than as a result of the river breaking its banks and carrying that gravel up onto the path. So having passed the Ken Brown Reserve, you're now on another bit of a downward slope, downward dip, going down towards the Gibson Street Bridge. Probably should have said earlier than this, I'm using the chest harness that I normally use with my running videos, and I'm using the better of the two cameras. It shoots better video at a higher resolution, and also has a little less of the side to side. It's a bit more stable, so hopefully you're not going to get seasick watching me. And if you're watching this in full screen or theatre mode, you might be able to see the Gibson Street Bridge just off on the left. And when I came down to this area last Saturday, I was going to run along part of here. Although I knew the parkrun was called off, I came down to the end of Gibson Street here, and I saw that the water was not only over the bridge, but in fact the river had broken its banks and the water was well over the path here that we're running on. And if you're watching, as I said, in theatre mode or full screen mode, you'll be able to see, I hope, the bridge on the left-hand side. There's a person who's not part of the parkrun crew, he's just a bloke walking his dog. And that's one of the things that that's the entrance to the Gibson Street Bridge just on the left there. One of the things you see of a Saturday morning is a shared path, so of course other people are able to use them and entitled to use them. And so you see dog walkers and you see other people who are just walking who are not park runners, sometimes going the same way or in the opposite direction, and sometimes there are cyclists as well. Now from Gibson Street there's a bit of a rise and then a dip again to another stormwater gully. It doesn't actually have a name, it's just coming up now, I think. You can see all the debris on the track here, a bit loose underfoot. So the water was up here, and then you're up a slight rise again, and I'm heading in the general direction, or heading in the direction of the Victoria Parade, Victoria Street. I'm not sure what the correct name for that is. I think it's Victoria Street Bridge. It's at the edge of Victoria Street or McDermott Drive, and it is almost, that's that stormwater gully I was just talking about. And so up the rise at the back of Goodhue Park towards the Victoria Street Bridge. It was always my hope when I first started doing this that I would reach the Gibson Street Bridge, which is about 1.6 or 7 kilometres from the start line, before the first runner going back past me. And when I was able to do that, I then said, well, okay, let's aim for the Victoria Street Bridge and see if I can get there. And once I'd achieved that regularly, I then set my sights on the 2 kilometre mark, which is obviously the other side of the bridge. Sometimes I achieve that, sometimes I don't. And just passing under that bridge now, and if you're watching in full screen you might be able to see the flood markers on the left hand side under the bridge. This bridge was not underwater, but the water was certainly high, below the deck, but certainly high. Now, very shortly, you will see the first runner pass me on his way back. And I'm still not at the 2 kilometre mark, so that would mean I've got at least 500 metres plus a bit more to go. He might have just passed me then. He's travelling pretty quickly, so I think you'll miss him. I think he finishes the race in about 17 and a bit minutes. This area here is around the back of the Police Citizens Youth Club. And across the river on the left-hand side is the back of the Police Academy. Again, you can see loose gravel and debris on the track, which is caused by last week's flooding, or last week's heavy rain, and the river having broken its bank. Second runner on his way back. He finishes in something like 20 minutes. You just see the river on the left-hand side, I think, in some places here. I'm going to take the left-hand fork here and keep the river on side. And there's down a dip here to a stormwater gully, and then up the other side of that dip to the turnaround point. Always somebody up there to mark the turnaround point, even though there's a little blue arrow marked on the road there on the path as a turnaround point. It's good to have somebody there welcome you and sort of encourage you when you're halfway through the run now, maybe feeling a bit tired. It's good to acknowledge the fact that they've given up their time on Saturday morning to stand there while you run. So around the Witch's Cone, the Witch's Hat, and then back down the other side. And so I've passed the halfway point at about 12 minutes and 37 seconds. As you'll see in the maps and stats at the end of this, because of my fat fingers and not paying attention this morning properly, I selected cycling instead of running. So instead of getting a lap by lap 1 kilometre breakdown of my times, I just get a 5 kilometre distance. I think that cycling considers 1 kilometre is not much of a distance to record, so I only got the 5 kilometre distance. It did tell me though that my average speed was something like 11 kilometres per hour. I'm not sure that's a good speed for cycling or not, but I thought it was a pretty good speed for running. Equally, it tells me that my maximum speed at one point was 17 kilometres per hour, and again I'm not sure if that's a good speed for cycling. I don't think it's a very good speed for cycling. And I don't know how good a speed it is for running, but I thought it was pretty good for me anyway. So once you get off that slip road back onto the main track here, it's flat again until you get on the other side of the Victoria Street Bridge. So it's a chance, hopefully, to pick up the pace a little bit, and maybe improve your time. But the trouble is, I think most of the runners have chewed up a lot of energy. Getting up that little slope there to the turnaround point, which is not steep, but still you're wanting to maintain your tempo and your rhythm and all that sort of stuff. So you probably chewed up a bit of energy there. And I always tell myself at this point, well, you're on the flat now, try and pick up the pace a bit. You're breathing pretty hard, and sometimes you're able to, sometimes you're not. I think the 3rd kilometre is always the killer. There's the bloke with the dog we passed earlier. And as you'll see, some runners passing me still going on the outward bound leg. So you get a better sense of what happens at a park run than just me running by myself. Now the pack as well, until the field has well and truly spread itself out, so people are sort of going by in ones and twos rather than huge crowds. I think even at some of the bigger park runs where they have hundreds of runners, they would have be strung out by now. The other places where I've run, in Tasmania, in New South Wales and Queensland, the field is well and truly strung out by this point. I was trying to point out to you just back there, I hope you could see what I was pointing at, the 3 kilometre mark, just coming up towards the Victoria Street Bridge. And I would have just passed the 3 kilometre mark back there. Now again, it dips down towards that little gully at the stormwater gully. And somewhere along here I will pass the tail walker. At Parkrun there is always a tail walker, somebody who obviously is at the end of the field, and the idea is if anything untoward happens to anybody on the course, the tail walker can phone to the run director, who can then decide whether an ambulance is needed or whatever it is, and do whatever is appropriate. To my knowledge, we've never needed the tail walker to do anything, but it's always handy to have somebody there just in case. This is the stormwater gully. And so you're back heading towards the Gibson Street Bridge again. You can turn onto the Gibson Street Bridge there, and then once you've crossed it, there are options left and right. If you go right, you would go around a loop and back onto the Victoria Street Bridge. If you go left, you would go around a series of paths and end up, go around the path that's up the top there and end up at the dog park behind the tillage, as I mentioned, to the place where I started the run on last Monday, I beg your pardon. So along the way, as well as the kilometre markers that are on the path, there are visual cues as to where you are. You might have already seen the big metallic metal circle, which is a piece of artwork called Unbroken. And pass that on the way out and on the way in. On the way back, it's always something to notice and think, well, I'm on how far I've come and how much further I've got to go. And just ahead of that, heading back towards the start line, is the giant balloon. I think it's a balloon at least, on one of the light poles. I don't know if that piece of artwork has a name, but again, it's one of those markers you can aim towards and say, well, I'm feeling a bit fatigued maybe, or legs are getting a bit heavy, or whatever it is, so I'll aim towards that marker. And when I get there, I'll be at the top of a bit of a rise, and I'll have a bit of a downward run then. You might have noticed on the outward leg there was a runner in front of me in a white singlet, black shorts, and I was trying to keep that person in touch with me, at least I thought within striking distance of me, thinking if I can keep up with that person, I'll get a good time. They have a better strategy than I do, and don't burn up all their energy in the outward bound leg, and she pulled away from me in the return leg, and got home probably close to a minute or more before I did. I think she was trying to help me by pacing me in the first half so that I'd get a good time, and I appreciate that. But she just is a bit stronger on the return leg than I am. And very shortly we'll be coming up to the 4 kilometre marker. I hope you can see me pointing to it on the path. Pointing to it there, the 4 kilometre marker. Obviously that means you've got 1 kilometre to go, and in terms of markers on the field and the markers on the track and layout of the track and so on, there's a dip downwards here, and then it's the reverse of the dip up towards the Hawthorne Street bridge. And at this point I'm always telling myself, we'll get to the Hawthorne Street bridge, get up onto the bridge, and then it's all flat until you go past where the waterfowl, the ducks and the geese live, and then it's down a dip again under the Crookle Road bridge. Those who've never tried parkrun and would like to have a go, it's every Saturday morning in Goulburn. It starts at Mars and Weir at 8 o'clock. Most of the other parkruns in the region, there are ones in Braidwood, Yass, Queanbeyan, lots in Canberra, one at Moss Vale. They all start at 8 o'clock. And the idea being that no matter where you are in New South Wales, the parkrun will start at 8 o'clock. So you can, wherever you go, you know it's going to start at 8. You're not required to run. It's a free event. You can register and then get a barcode. But if you don't want a barcode, you just won't get your time recorded at the end of the run. But it doesn't cost you anything to register or to join or to do, and you're not required to run. Although it's called parkrun, it can be a walk, it can be a stroll. Some people do just meet their friends and chat for half an hour or 35 minutes, whatever it is it takes them to do it. The organisers won't leave until the last runner is back. Then that will be the tail runner, the tail walker. So if you're as long as you're in front of them, the organisers will still be there to take your barcode, and make sure that you get back to your car safely. Some people do, like myself, run the whole distance. Other people do a bit of running, a bit of walking, a bit of running, a bit of walking. If that works for you, that's fine. The idea is to just be out of a Saturday morning doing this thing, getting a bit of exercise, having a bit of fun, meeting your friends, and you're really only competing with yourself and the clock, because each week when you come out you want to improve on the time you did last week, and sometimes you will and sometimes you won't. You might have a particular person that is in front of you that you want to try and beat, like the person that was helping me. Or you might have a person who behind you that's using you as their pacer and saying, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep going, that person's still running and I'm going to keep going as long as I can to keep up with them. And we're almost at the dip down where the waterfowl live. You can just, in a moment, probably see the geese coming into the frame now. Geese there, and there are ducks as well. And you'll see a bare stretch of the bank just on the right there where they make their way out to the water every day. And again, loose stuff on the path. So now you're going down the dip. The photographer there taking my photo. I hope it turns up on the later on for use. And a little bit further on there's another photographer. So somebody who's doing something as a special school project has been offered their services to take photographs today. Very nice of them to do so. There's a pedestrian bridge on the right here which will take you up over to those tracks on the high side of the river as well. Somebody just passed me, almost pipping me at the post. I know I passed that person earlier in the race, so that's what I mean about having a good strategy, having a run strategy for getting towards the end and still having something left in the tank. Just about to cross the start line down here. And so I'll say just about to cross the start line, and there are 2 loops here, and I try to put on a big finish with the afterburners after I've done on the second loop. I'll thank you for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this morning's run, and maybe I'll see you at a park run on a future event. If you have any comments, feel free to offer them in the feedback. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you on another occasion. Putting on the big finish now, and crossing the finish line, I hope, and getting my token to get scanned for my time. Thank you for watching.